I'll begin. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet death is a destination that we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Steve Jobs. The question before us today is, in what ways do today's industries and economic practices shape, affect, and dictate Western social mores regarding mortality? What is the traditional intellectual history of Western social mores? And what is the contemporary progression of those mores? Modern Western civilization is founded on the concept of negative rights. Rights are endowed by a higher being, which individuals cannot be deprived of. We often use the words of Thomas Jefferson to summarize what we mean by negative rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are self-evident and inalienable. Positive rights are those rights that are provided for you by other people. The right to life is to sustain yourself and for your person to be protected from threats against by other people. The right, as society has progressed materially, it has also progressed morally. Not only do people have the right not to be maimed or killed, they also have the right to have their life preserved against the forces of nature, disease and disaster alike. Attributing positive rights presents several questions. Where do these rights come from? Are they inalienable? And is there a moral obligation to support them? This lecture will seek to shed light on these questions, as well as examine a relevant and contemporary policy issue. Is healthcare a right? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, written in 1948, states in Article 25 that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. According to this document, accepted internationally as an authority on human rights, every individual has a right to the preservation of their health. As citizens of a developed country with cutting-edge medical technology and broad access to care, it seems intuitive that such entitlement exists. If there is a way, why shouldn't there also be a will? But a desire to see all receive equal medical treatment does not manifest itself practically. Firstly, not all nations are as developed as those in the West. Stating that such a right exists is like saying that all humans have a right to visit Saturn. It's simply unachievable without infrastructure, free market, and development of resources. Secondly, it poses a dilemma. Positive and negative rights cannot coexist. If communities are required to pay for the healthcare services of others, and doctors are required to care for them, then this is depriving them of their liberty. If they choose not to do this, then they are depriving people of their right to health care. Western mores are confused when they attempt to operate from the basis of both simultaneously. What is the source of this moral progression? For almost 2 millennia, the right to health care was never considered a right at all. In fact, in many cultures and contexts, the right to life is not necessarily absolute or sacred. Why then does it suddenly seem morally reprehensible for human beings to be deprived of access to both routine and life-saving medical care? I would contend that the Industrial Revolution is primarily responsible. The Industrial Revolution changed much in our society. Planes, trains, and automobiles, agriculture, clothing, shelter, medicine, and all of the things that make life so much easier. Indoor plumbing, electricity, central cooling, iPhones, Amazon.com, all of these things have their heritage in the Industrial Revolution. We have much to be thankful for because of this rapid period of growth and innovation. It's made our lives easier, better, and longer. It has also amplified the stratification of haves and have-nots. It's one thing to not have a new Mercedes and to have a used Toyota instead. It's something else entirely to not have the ability to pay for life-saving surgery for your wife and have to hope for the best instead. There's a moral distinction between these two things. While a car is a tool for improving the quality of life, allowing for travel, a commute to a job, a larger community, conveniences, etc., healthcare in many cases is a matter of life and death. Depriving someone of that is seen as the same as depriving them of their life. The haves in this instance would be oppressing the have-nots by denying them of their right to even continue their existence. This is the Kantian distinction of a means and an end. Human life is valuable in and of itself, not for what it can accomplish. There's an urgency and outrage to a lack of universal health care because we view the medical industry and profession as the solution to all mortal problems. What logical effects do positive rights, the Industrial Revolution, and the right to health care have? Most importantly, they affect our concept of death, when it should happen, why it should happen, and how prepared we are for it. The improvement of living conditions, the eradication of diseases like smallpox and malaria, and the elongation of the human lifespan have created the impression that we have some measure of control over death. We attempt to control death because, to some extent, modern technology allows us to do so. But death is the natural conclusion of life. Pharmaceuticals and specialists and hospitals can delay the inevitability of death, but it is still inevitable. Perhaps this is what makes it so terrifying, that no matter what efforts we make to slow the clock, it will still strike midnight. In the medieval age, people kept reminders of death all around them. This is called memento mori, meaning remember that you have to die. This was an intentional practice to become comfortable with the idea of death. This was a time of religious assurance. Death was less frightening because what came after was certain. In the Western world today, religion is separated from many aspects of our daily lives. We have the power of overwhelming choice. Buddhism, Islam, atheism, Christianity. If you're a Christian, you can be evangelical or Baptist or Roman Catholic, Lutheran or Presbyterian. The power of choice dilutes our perception of the afterlife, making this one seem all the more precious. We are absolutely terrified by death, and our insecurity is heightened by our lack of assurance for what comes next. But our attempts to control death ultimately devalue life itself. When faced with the probability of dying, we champion the right to a death with dignity and the right to choose how you will go. Brittany Maynard stirred moral debate in America for her decision to die at a time of her choosing instead of from the cancer that was killing her. The Hippocratic Oath forbids physician-assisted suicide, saying, "Nor shall any man's entreaty prevail upon me to administer poison to anyone, neither will I counsel any man to do so." The capabilities of medicine have given us not only the power to delay death, but to determine it. The problem with a right to health care is the idea that we have a right to the longest possible life that we can live. If surgeries and prescriptions and transplants and therapies can prolong the life of certain people, how is it fair that this opportunity is not equally distributed? Intuitively, it does not seem fair. But we don't have a right to a long life, only the life that we have the opportunity to live. The fallacy is not, why do some people have access to health care and others do not? The fallacy is believing that we can exercise control over mortality and that we should in every circumstance. Hope in an everlasting life on earth prevents us from thinking about the hope that we have in everlasting life. It is more important to be prepared for death than to keep it at bay as long as possible. Nothing else, besides taxes, of course, is certain to happen. Leonardo da Vinci wisely said, "While I thought that I was learning how to live, I have been learning how to die." Students often experience the frustration upon graduation that they have finally mastered how to do school and then they no longer have to do it anymore. The same is true with life. Once we get good at it, we die. But just as our time as a student prepares us for the next chapter in our life to come, so does this life prepare us for the one that awaits us on the other side of death. Thank you.